Her orders from the sisterhood were one sentence long: bear only daughters.
You were told to bear only daughters, but you in your pride thought you could produce the Kwisatz Haderach.
That's her own teacher saying it to her face, by the way, the morning after they held a poison needle to her kid's throat. 90 generations of arranged marriages, and the whole thing comes apart because one woman gave the man she loved the child he wanted. Okay, so before anything else, there's a version of this video where Jessica is the villain, and I don't buy it. Every disastrous thing she does across these two films, she does as a mother.
There was a switch of character, for me, that's how I recognized it, from being this Bene Gesserit protecting mother to the journey of Paul.
She's keeping her kid alive. That's the motive from start to finish, and it ends up costing more lives than anything the actual villains manage to pull off, which is the part I find uncomfortable, and it's why I wanted to do this one. The sisterhood spent thousands of years trying to take feeling out of who has children with whom. Then they trained a woman, put her in a house next to a man she was going to fall in love with, and wrote it up as a controlled experiment. I mean, she lived in that house for about 20 years. Nobody stays a data point for 20 years. We did a whole video on what the Bene Gesserit are and how their machine works, so I'm not going to run that again. Links up there. Short version for anyone new. They're a school for women that has spent thousands of years steering who marries whom in the noble houses.
Thousands of years. We've been carefully crossing bloodlines to bring forth
one.
And their long project is to breed one specific person. The person they're aiming at is called the Kwisatz Haderach, and if you only know the movies, it's a name that gets said a lot and explained never. It means a mind that can be in two places in time at once. Someone who can look down every branch of the future and pick. To get there, they need specific parents in a specific order, and Jessica's job in that order was tiny in total. Marry into House Atreides, produce a daughter, and that daughter marries the Harkonnen heir. Two enemy families ending up in the same child, and the boy who comes out of that marriage is the one they've been building toward. That's the assignment. A daughter, and then a wedding 2 decades later that she probably never lived to see. And let's do the arithmetic for a second, because 90 generations goes past us as flavor. 90. Call a generation 25 years, and that program was already running before anyone alive in this story had a surname. Every one of those marriages was set up by women who knew they'd be dead long before it paid off. They added a name to the book and handed the book to the next one. So it isn't an organization the way we normally use the word. It's a queue of women doing shifts. And what's in the book they keep handing over is a list of other people's children. And here's what I want you to sit with, because it reframes the whole character. Jessica is not a queen who defied fate. She's a mid-level asset who missed a deliverable. Watch how her own teacher talks about it afterwards. There's no rage in it, no betrayal, nothing personal at all.
But our plans are measured in centuries. We have other prospects, if he fails his promise.
It's a project manager doing a risk review. Other prospects. So her son is one line on a list, and the list carries on without him. I love that scene, honestly, because of how boring the sisterhood makes it sound. Jessica asks a human question. Do you really see so little hope?
On Arrakis.
Have you dreamt of her before?
And gets a status update back. A path has been laid. Hang on to that phrase. We're coming back to it because in a bit, we're going to find out what the path is actually made of. Okay, so before the disobedience, we need the paperwork. Because most people watching these films assume Jessica is Leto's wife, and she isn't, and the difference is the entire reason she has any power in this story at all. She's his concubine. That word gets said out loud exactly once, and it's the Baron who says it, which tells you something about who in this universe bothers with accurate job titles.
Your son is dead, your concubine is dead.
The films never stop to explain why the Duke of a great house would keep the mother of his only heir out of the marriage. They don't have to. The rule is sitting right there in the sequel.
She says you're blinded by love, and she reminds you that you must reserve your hand for the most strategic alliance.
In a sentence, the sisterhood says to Paul about his own future. That's it. That's the rule of this world. A noble marriage is a bargaining chip, and you never spend it on someone you love. Leto keeps his hand free for a political match that never comes. And Jessica lives in his house for 20 years as the woman who runs it, raises his son, stands at his shoulder at every ceremony, and has no legal standing whatsoever. Now put that next to what she actually is. She's an asset the sisterhood placed inside House Atreides. Her value to them is a womb plus a training. And you can hear both halves in the most painful scene in the first film. The one where Leto, who loves her and who has never once questioned her, asks her for a promise.
And from the moment he was born, I never questioned you.
Then he asks whether she'll protect their son if something happens. She says, "With my life." And he doesn't accept it. I think that's the most important line anybody says about her in either film. Her own partner, the man who trusted her completely, separates her into two people and tells her which one he needs. The mother's promise isn't good enough. He wants the operative. And the awful joke of this whole story is that he got the opposite. Every time it mattered, he got the mother. One more thing about her position, because it's easy to hear concubine and picture someone decorative. Look at what she actually does in that house. She runs it. When they land on Arrakis and the staff has to be replaced, it's Jessica doing the hiring, alone in a room with a stranger.
I know that you have a weapon concealed in your bodies.
And she clocks a knife hidden in the woman's dress before the interview has properly started. That's the double life in one conversation. The lady of the house interviewing a housekeeper, the trained operative reading a body, and a Fremen woman testing whether the prophecy her people were handed generations ago has finally walked through the door. So when we say she had no legal standing, hold both halves. On paper, she's nobody. In practice, she's the most capable person in the building, and the only one who knows what the local religion is actually made of. So why did she do it? Why break a 90-generation program for one baby? The films are very quiet about this, and I actually think that's the right call, because the answer is embarrassingly small. Leto wanted a son. She loved him. That's the reason. There's no prophecy in it, no vision, no grand plan. A woman gave the person she loved the thing he wanted.
But you, in your pride, thought you could produce the Kwisatz Haderach.
The sisterhood's own summary of her motive is one word, and it isn't love, it's pride. And Jessica doesn't argue the fact, she argues the verdict. Hold on to that too. We're ending on it. There's a scene the night before that conversation, which I think is the truest thing in the first film, about what she is, and most of us watch it entirely from Paul's side. The old woman puts a box in front of a 16-year-old, puts a poison needle at his throat, and tells him to keep his hand in the box while it burns. It's the famous test. What we forget is where his mother is standing. She's outside the door, guarding it, making sure nobody interrupts a woman who is currently holding a needle to her son's neck. I mean, think about what that costs. She could stop it. She's the most dangerous person in that corridor, and both women in the story know it. She doesn't stop it because if he fails the test, he was never going to survive what's coming anyway, and because she still, at that point, half believes the school she came from. And you can hear the price in the first thing she says when the door finally opened.
Did you have to go that far?
That's the last moment in either film where she's asking the sisterhood for anything. Now, the second act of the disobedience is the part people skip, and it's bigger than the birth. She trained him. Everything the sisterhood knows, she poured into a boy, which was flatly against the rules, because those skills belong to women, and in their doctrine, a male who takes them on ends up somewhere the order can't follow.
You've been training him in the way.
We see the training in the opening scene of the first film, before we know anything about anybody, and it plays as warm domestic stuff. A mother and a teenager being annoying at each other before breakfast. Watch it again, knowing what it is. She's making her son practice the voice, which is the trick where you tune a sentence to somebody's nervous system so their body obeys before their brain gets a vote.
If you want it, make me give it to you.
And she's using herself as the target. Command me, his mother, telling him to override her. Both halves of her are in that room, and they're doing the same thing at the same time. That's what makes her hard to read for the whole first film. The Bene Gesserit is drilling an asset. The mother is arming her kid for a world she knows is coming for him. And here's the consequence, the actual mechanical consequence of a disobedience. Because it's not just wrong gender plan delayed. A daughter would have been raised inside the order, married where they said, and the Kwisatz Haderach would have arrived one generation later, inside the school, under supervision, on their calendar. Instead, the being they spent 90 generations engineering shows up early, in the wrong body, in the wrong house, on a planet that's about to become a war zone trained by a woman who answers to nobody. He isn't their weapon. He's loose. Their own teacher can see it, standing in that fog.
If he is the one, he has a long way to go. His sight is barely awakened, and now he goes into the fire.
And the way she says it is almost weary. And the boy himself works out what happened to him before anyone tells him. It comes out in the desert, when the visions hit properly for the first time and he sees where all of this ends. A holy war carrying his father's name across the universe.
The war spreading across the universe like unquenchable fire.
His mother does the only thing a mother can do there. She grabs him and tells him who he is, and he throws it back at her. You Bene Gesserit. He files his own mother under the institution, which is unfair and also completely correct, and I don't think the film ever fully decides which. That's why the scene lands. Here's the turn that reorganizes everything you felt about her so far, and the second film sits on it until almost the end. Paul drinks the poison, wakes up with his sight opened all the way,
I saw our bloodline, Mother.
and reads his own family backwards. The Baron, the man who murdered her partner, who ordered her and her son dumped in the desert to die, who says the word concubine about her like he's reading a receipt. That man is her father. And the tell that this is horror rather than a twist is her answer. She didn't know either.
I didn't know myself until I took the worm's poison.
Think about what that means for the whole video. The woman who broke the breeding program was herself a product of it. Somebody in that order looked at the Baron Harkonnen bloodline, decided it had something they wanted, arranged a daughter out of it, raised that daughter in their school, trained her and shipped her to House Atreides, and never told her whose blood she was carrying. She spent her entire life as a line in a ledger she thought she was keeping. And if you want to know how the Order thinks about the people in that book, the second film hands it to you in one exchange, on the other side of the galaxy, about a completely different young man. The Sisterhood is discussing a backup candidate.
He's psychotic.
The Baron's nephew, Fade Routha, a man we have literally just watched murder people for a birthday show. Irrelevant. And then the line that should be their motto, because it explains why nothing in this order ever bends.
Hope. We are Bene Gesserit. We don't hope, we plan.
That's the machine Jessica was raised inside, and that's the machine she was made by. So when we get to the part where she does something monstrous, keep this in your head. She learned it at school, and she learned it as a subject, not a teacher. Now the part where she's genuinely frightening, and it's not the fighting. Everyone remembers Jessica in the desert as the woman who gets taken prisoner and then puts a knife to a Fremen leader's throat. Fine, great scene, and it's the moment the desert starts taking her seriously. Stilgar writes her off out loud, and about a minute later, he's apologizing.
But the woman isn't trained.
And I don't want to skate past that fight, because it's the moment her two halves stop being a metaphor and start being a survival tactic. Two refugees turn up at a Fremen camp with nothing. The leader is willing to take the boy and leave the woman in the sand on the grounds that she's too old to learn their ways. 30 seconds later, she has him on the ground with a knife at his throat and the whole tribe frozen. And the thing she trades it for isn't revenge. It's a place for both of them.
Peace, woman.
She never uses the wind to take anything. She uses it to be allowed to stay, though it costs her within the hour. And this is the bit that gets missed. Because she won that fight, the tribe hands her a religious rank on the spot, a Sayadina, roughly a priestess, and one of the men reads the rules back at them.
You may not challenge a Sayadina.
Then who will fight in her name?
Nobody may challenge her, so somebody has to fight in her name. Her son, 16 years old, 3 days in the desert, and he's in a knife fight to the death because his mother earned a title she never asked for. She stands in that circle and watches, and the only thing she says about it is flat and quiet, and to a man she barely knows.
Paul has never killed a man.
He kills him, and the whisper that goes round the cave afterwards is the name of the thing her order spent 90 generations trying to build. That's not the dangerous part, though. The dangerous part happens much earlier, on the day they land. When she looks at a crowd of desert people shouting a name at her son and recognizes the handwriting. She knows, on day one, out loud to her child, this prophecy is ours. We wrote it. It was planted here generations ago as an escape hatch in case one of us ever needed a native population to hide in. So when everything collapses, the Duke dead, the house gone, the two of them on foot in the deep desert with the whole planet hunting them, she reaches for the nearest weapon. And the nearest weapon is a religion her own order forged for exactly this situation. And I want to be fair about how it starts, because the first push doesn't come from her. It comes from Stilgar.
When we have enough water, the Lisan al-Gaib will change the face of Arrakis.
Who has spent his life believing the story her order planted, and who now needs the Messiah's mother to fill a vacancy. A reverend mother if you're new, the tribe's memory. She drinks a poison that kills men outright, and if she survives it, every woman who held the post before her wakes up inside her head. Jessica asks what happens if she says no, and the answer is the most Fremen sentence in either film.
What else is left to do then but to return your water to the well?
Drink it or we harvest you for water. So yes, the first step is taken with a knife at her back. Nobody should pretend otherwise. But everything after that step is hers. Because once she survives the poison, she stops being a refugee hiding inside somebody's prophecy and starts running it. And the film shows us the exact moment the mother picks up the tool, in a scene where she is completely alone, talking to her unborn daughter, and her voice perfectly level.
You're right. If we want to protect your brother, we need all the Fremen to believe in the prophecy.
The ones who fear us. That's a mother. That's a mother's reason, a mother's project, and a mother's target list. And I genuinely don't know a scarier line in either film. There's no ambition in her voice at all. She's doing a job around the house, and she's methodical about it. Where the fanatics are thickest, that's where she goes. And she says why.
There are millions of fundamentalists there.
Millions of fundamentalists. Not as a warning, as a resource. She rides south to detonate the most flammable population on the planet, on purpose, because a fanatic army is the only thing that can keep one boy alive. And it works, and we get to watch it work from two directions. From inside, Chani says out loud what's actually happening to her own people.
Yet we have a Bene Gesserit among us, fanning the flames of your legend, saying you're the one.
Paul tries the kind defense. We gave them something to hope for, and Chani doesn't let him have it. And from outside, from orbit, the Emperor's daughter is reading intelligence reports about a stranger stirring up the south, and she doesn't even know it's Jessica.
Nothing can live there without faith. Which is why our Bene Gesserit missionaries have been so productive there.
A new Reverend Mother from the north. That's what her rescue plan looks like when it reaches somebody's desk in orbit. There's one more beat here that I can't get out of my head, and it's the last thing she says before her son walks into the ritual that finishes him. She's briefing the southern priesthood on what to do when he arrives, and they tell her the rite is forbidden. Men die of it. Let him try. About her own son. That's the point where I stop being able to tell which half of her is talking, and I don't think she could either. And look at the shape of what she's built by then, because it's worth saying plainly, she arrived on that planet as a refugee with one child and no army. By the end, she has a religion running on 2 continents, a population that will die for her son on command, and a priesthood taking instructions from her personally. No throne, no title anybody outside the desert would recognize, no fleet. She did it with a story her order left lying around like a spare key, and with the one asset every parent has and nobody counts. The willingness to do absolutely anything. That's the part I'd ask you to hold on to when people call her a side character. In terms of body count, Lady Jessica is the most consequential person in either film, and she never once picks up a weapon bigger than a knife. We need to talk about the daughter, because the sisterhood didn't only lose control of Paul. When Jessica drinks that poison, she's pregnant. A few weeks, maybe. And the thing she takes is not a drug in any normal sense. It's the concentrated liquid the sisterhood uses to open a woman's mind to every ancestor she has. She knows what it costs, because she says it herself before she drinks.
Reverend Mothers are tasked with holding the memories of all the Reverend Mothers that came before them, so I'll be given centuries of pain and sorrow.
Centuries of pain and sorrow, poured into an adult woman who has trained her entire life to survive it, and through her, into a fetus that has trained for nothing. And it takes. The child wakes up in there. She's aware, she has the memories of every Reverend Mother in that line, and she talks. The second film is full of scenes where Jessica is relaying arguments from a person who has not been born.
She says she can tell when you lie.
Watch that exchange again and notice the staging. 2 people on screen, 3 people in the conversation. Paul is arguing with his sister through his mother's mouth, and he's rude about his mother while his mother is doing the talking. It plays almost like a family squabble, which is exactly why it slides past you. Here's the part that matters for our thesis. The Order has a word for a child who arrives with an adult mind already installed, and it isn't a nice one. In their doctrine, that child is contaminated at the root. Too many voices, no self of her own. A person who can be ridden by the dead. And in the second film, we hear the words said out loud, in the throne room, by the old teacher, with Jessica standing right there in her new red veil.
Abomination.
And notice who Aaliyah sides with, not with her brother. She backs the plan. She's the one nagging Paul about strategic marriages, about not being blinded by love, about why he won't admit what he is. Jessica made herself an ally out of a person who didn't exist yet.
She says you're blinded by love, and she reminds you that you must reserve your hand for the most strategic alliance.
And that ally spends the second film arguing the sisterhood's own logic at the one man the sisterhood can't control. Or rather, let me put that more carefully, because I don't think Jessica planned a co-conspirator. She drank the poison to survive a Fremen ultimatum and to give her son a shield. What came out of it was a second mind that thinks the way her school taught her to think, and that mind now lives with her, permanently, on the inside. 2 unplanned monsters out of one lifetime, and both of them made by the same reflex. Keep the boy alive and worry about the rest later. The first one she made by loving a man. The second one she made by saving her son. Neither was in anybody's plan, and both of them ended up standing next to the throne. All right, time for the honest part, because a video that just lines up her crimes would be dishonest, and I'd rather annoy you than cheat. Look at what the alternatives actually were. Not in theory, on screen, in the room, with the timer running. Obey the order and bear a daughter, and Leto has no heir and House Atreides ends anyway, only quieter, and the girl is raised into the same machine that raised Jessica and never told her whose blood she carried. Refuse the training, and Paul walks into the Emperor's trap as an ordinary teenage Duke's son, which is to say, he dies in the first night of the attack with everybody else. Refuse the poison in the desert, and the Fremen return her water to the well, and her son loses the only protection available on that planet. Skip the South, skip the fanatics, and the boy who is already the most hunted person in the universe stands alone against an armada. Every single one of those roads ends with a dead son. She takes the one road that doesn't. That's the whole character. And before anyone types it, yes, she could have told him to walk away, take the boy off-world, hide on some backwater, let the Emperor keep his dessert. She actually tries that, early, with the only people who could arrange it, and they say no.
No. Paul needs to get off-world. You must have ways. You have smugglers, you have ships.
There's no exit from this planet for the 2 of them, and everyone in that cave knows it. That's the last moment where a normal life is on the table. After that, every option she has runs through the prophecy. There's a harder question underneath, though, and it's the one I keep chewing on. Did she believe it? When she's telling the southern tribes that her son is the voice from the outer world, does part of her think it might be true?
It was rooted in understanding and the acceptance that he knows his mother is a fundamentalist and a full believer.
The films leave that open on purpose, and my honest guess is that it stopped mattering to her fairly early. She'd already watched the story work. Once a thing is keeping your child alive, you stop auditing whether you believe in it, which is why I'd call this horror rather than villainy. A villain wants something for himself.
You?
Bene Gesserit ain't on highborn.
Jessica wants what most parents watching this want, and she happens to be standing on a lever big enough to move a galaxy. Herbert said much the same in interviews, in plainer language than the books ever use. His worry wasn't evil people, it was ordinary people whose mistakes get multiplied.
Messiahs should come with a label on the forehead, may be dangerous to your health.
Multiply Jessica's mistakes by a planet of believers her own order prepared centuries in advance, and you get the number in the title of this video. 61 billion dead, and I should be straight with you about where that figure comes from, because it isn't in either film. It's in the second novel, which picks up after the war her son's followers fight in his name. The films stop just before the bill arrives. Chani walks off into the sand, and the fleet goes up, and the credits run. So here's where I land, and you're welcome to fight me in the comments because I've gone back and forth on it myself. The sisterhood's mistake wasn't Jessica. Jessica was the mistake they were always going to make. You cannot run a 90-generation breeding program by placing trained women inside families and expect the families not to do what families do. They engineered feeling out of the arithmetic and then filed their operatives into houses full of husbands and children and dinners and grief. The Order's own doctrine says love makes you unreliable, and every posting they hand out is a posting where love is the job. And the last thing I'd point at is that little question she asks in the fog, right after they've told her what she cost them. Nobody in either film answers it. The films are 2.5 hours each. There's a war, an emperor, a worm the size of a stadium, and this quiet 3-word question just sits there unanswered in the middle of it. By the Sisterhood's arithmetic, 61 billion an heir they can't control. A daughter their own doctrine calls a monstrosity. Obviously, catastrophically, yes. By the only measure she was actually using, the boy lived. Both of those answers are true at the same time, and that's the bit I think Dune is actually about.
And to make sure that the movie will be a cautionary tale against messianic figure and not a celebration of Paul.
Not the chosen one, not the prophecy. A decent person makes a loving choice, and the system she's standing in turns it into a body count. Anyway, if you want the machine she was fighting explained properly, the Bene Gesserit video is right there, and it pairs with this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.